The Columbus Blue Jackets keep fighting for a playoff berth. The LA Kings and Dallas Stars are jockeying for position in the West. But will injuries play a big role, especially in Dallas? We've got all of that and a lot more next on today's Locked On NHL podcast.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Gil Martin here. Welcome, everybody, to the Monday edition of the Locked On NHL podcast. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On NHL your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts so you get new episodes as soon as they drop. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. It is my pleasure to welcome back to the show the host of Locked On Blue Jackets, Jay Foster. And Jay, a nice return to action for Columbus after Four Nations. Just a solid effort in the win. Let's start with Zach Werenski. What a game he had.
Zach Werenski is inevitable. I talked a lot in the show this week about, well, the Four Nations break came at a great time because everyone got to rest except for Zach Werenski. So, he played a billion minutes at the Four Nations, has come back. He played a game Thursday, didn't skate this morning, got on the ice, and then a goal, 2 assists. It's nothing, and it kind of is nothing for him at this point. And I actually, just before recording, did a little bit of Googling. The Blue Jackets' current record for most points in the season is held by Artemi Panarin, and it is 87. Zach Werenski has 62 points in 56 games. So far for the Blue Jackets, he's on pace for, I believe, 89 points this season. He needs 26 points in his next 25 games to break the record that Panarin set. And I think he does it. Just an unreal season from him. And he's not going to win the Norris, but he should get he'll get votes. When do we start talking about the Hart Trophy for Zach Werenski? Because it probably should have been about a month ago.
Yeah. No, he has been spectacular. Kind of the catalyst that makes this team go. How important to you was it to win that first game back from Four Nations?
Oh, huge. The Blue Jackets were on a 4-game losing streak going into the break. They lost Kirill Marchenko to a broken jaw 3 games before the break. They lost Dante Fabro to a concussion. Zach Werenski was a little bit banged up. He missed a game and then came right back and kept doing Zach Werenski things. But getting Kirill Marchenko back, getting Dante Fabro back. Boone Jenner made his season debut tonight. He hasn't played since preseason after shoulder surgery in October. This was not, on paper, a huge win. I think there are definitely some things to clean up, but you could see this team had, having time to rest was great. And the teams that they're in the playoff hunt against they both lost. So Ottawa lost in regulation. Detroit lost in overtime. Blue Jackets are still on the outside looking in on playoffs, but they have the same number of points as Detroit and Ottawa, who are both holding the wild card spots right now. So, they needed to win this. It's the Chicago Blackhawks. Obviously, you are going to lose games against bad teams, but if you want to make the playoffs, these are the games that you have to win, and they did win it. I thought Elvis was excellent. I thought Ken Johnson was spectacular. 2 goals for him, including, I believe, 1 on the power play. Just a really good. Everyone pitched in, right? It was exactly what they needed. Coming off of the Four Nations break, you have kind of what I've been calling it a warm-up game, which is maybe not the kindest thing to say about the Chicago Blackhawks, but the Blue Jackets, of their 25 games or whatever they have left, 27 games, 17 of them are against teams that are in a playoff spot currently, and another 6 of them are against teams that are within 6 points of a playoff spot. So there are no easy games anymore, but games like this one against the Blackhawks, who are, 31st in the league and are struggling, you have to win it. You win this one, you build some momentum. it means that you're not going into the game against Dallas on Tuesday, I think it is,
Yeah.
on a 5-game losing streak.
Emotional moment before the game as fans wish a happy birthday to Johnny Gaudreau Jr. Talk to me about that and what it meant for the team and for the Gaudreaus, really.
God, every time I think that, like, I'm not okay with it, but every time I'm like, man, okay, I've processed this, it's really sad, and then something like this happens, and I'm like, well, I'm just gonna sit on my couch and cry a little bit about it. It was really sweet, and I think that's been really important to the Gaudreaus this season. And like, I've really enjoyed. I don't know if I've talked about this on the national show before. I've talked about it on my show. Is following Meredith Gaudreau on Instagram has been really nice because she posts a ton of, like, she'll post pictures of a Johnny Gaudreau, or she'll have like little videos of him hanging out with the kids, or she'll have like stories and stuff, and it's been really nice to watch. But what else has been really nice is seeing, obviously, Boone Jenner's been injured most of the season. Erica Branson's been injured most of the season. Those two guys I know have been spending a lot of time with Meredith, and their wives have been coming over as well. And the Blue Jackets' wives and girlfriends have really, like, not brought Meredith in, but they've really kind of kept her close this season. And that's been really special. She's come to a lot of games. I don't know that it was like a motivational for the team necessarily, but I think it's clearly really important to them to keep Johnny and his family close.
We are coming close now to the next outdoor game. Talk to me about that, what it means to the team, and what you expect to see there.
Oh, it's just so cool, right? Like, I know that to some teams, maybe an outdoor game is, they're over it and they're bored of it now. But, like, Columbus was, I think, one of 3 teams that hadn't played in an outdoor game before this season. And, doing it at the Shoe, the Ohio Stadium where the Buckeyes play, playing against the Detroit Red Wings. Like, obviously there's a lot of rivalry and history there. It's going to be so cool. Like, every time they're keeping it under pretty close wraps about, like, what's actually going to happen. But I do know that they apparently have enough pyrotechnics on site to shake the entire city of Columbus. So I don't know, the cannon is going to be there. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if there is like a full 21 gun salute and an entire squad of planes that fly overhead whenever the Blue Jackets score. Like, it's going to be such an event. And it's been a long time coming. The Blue Jackets have been trying to get this done for years and years. I believe, I don't remember who it is exactly, but I believe it's the president of Ohio State, recently retired. So they brought a new guy in, and lo and behold, very soon after that, they started making pathway on bringing an outdoor game to Columbus, and it happened very, very fast. So you love to see that. Frustrating that it's taken this long, but it's going to be really fun. And as an added, like, little bonus as well, the game is going to be meaningful. They're currently in a dogfight with the Detroit Red Wings for a wild card spot in the playoffs. Like, this game could have huge implications on both of these seasons. The season for the Blue Jackets, the season for the Red Wings, and like, I know that was a lot of the complaints about the Chicago St. Louis outdoor game was, well, Chicago's not competitive. St. Louis is not super competitive this year. Like, you want to have the games mean something, right? And this game is going to mean something for a lot of different reasons, but also, like, at a base level, it's going to be important to the standings. This game might be the make or break game. Like, if it stays as close as it is, it could be whoever wins this game gets to make the playoffs, which is really, really fun for an outdoor game.
It is, and especially if someone wins in regulation. So, yeah. Trade deadline is now just a few weeks away. The Blue Jackets surprising a lot of people, being in the thick of the playoff hunt. What do you expect them to do? And what are they looking for if they are looking to add anything?
They want another top 6 winger, I believe, potentially a top 9 winger. There's been a lot of talk about, who's available, what's going to happen. Don Waddell has kind of come out and said that they're going to be, I believe the exact quote was moderate buyers. They're not going to, they're not going to go all in on someone. They're not going to go ahead and try and get Mikko Rantanen from the Hurricanes if he is indeed still available by the deadline. They've got 2 first-round picks at the minute. He wants to keep hold of at least one of them. I would be surprised if he keeps hold of both of them. There's a name that has been floated around recently. Gus Nyquist of Nashville Predators is in the final year of his deal, is, I believe, 35 years old, could probably be had for, a mid-round pick, for a 4th round or a 5th round pick, maybe. Like, those are the kind of moves I'm expecting. No one that's going to move the needle, really, just someone to bolster what the Blue Jackets have built this season, right? You don't really want to trade away futures at this stage of the rebuild, but you also don't necessarily want to not make any moves either. There's a lot of people talking about, well, you want to reward the group by, for doing so well this season, reward them with an extra piece. And I still don't know that they need to add all that much this season. I think they're looking at the addition of Boone Jenner as a trade deadline acquisition. They're going to get Sean Monahan back in a couple of weeks. He's, going to be another big addition for this team. I think getting Kromachenko back, I think he broke his jaw 20 days ago, I believe, 19 or 20 days ago, and he's already playing again. So, like, that's another addition. They don't need to, I think anyway, add much. They were never supposed to make the playoffs this season. Right. They're playing with house money. Obviously, they don't want to get bounced immediately. Like, they want to, put an effort in to both make the playoffs and make a splash while they're there. But this is not like it's not a cup or bust, right? It's not like, for example, like the Carolina Hurricanes, I feel like, are getting close to, well, we need to take the next step. The Dallas Stars are like, we need to take the next step. Those are the kind of teams that you expect to go big or go home. Blue Jackets are going to keep doing what they're doing, what they've done all season long. They're going to keep, they're going to go as far as they're going to go as far as this season will take them.
All right. Well, we'll see. Jay, why don't you tell our viewers and our listeners where they can find the podcast and where they can find you on social media?
You can find me on Twitter at _Jacob Foster, JAKOBFORSTER. You can find me on Blue Sky at the same username without the underscore. You can find the show on Twitter at LO_Blue Jackets. We will be on Blue Sky soon. And you can find the show wherever you listen to Locked On NHL. We're on every podcasting app and also over on YouTube.
All right, Jay, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Today's episode is brought to you by Wonderful Pistachios. Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. Personally, I love the no snack variety. It's the perfect grab and go snack for busy days. Whether I'm snacking at my desk, on a road trip, or just need a quick protein boost, they're always my go-to. And if you love cracking open every shell for that satisfying crunch, the in-shell options are a classic favorite. Get snacking and get cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. That's wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. It is my pleasure to welcome back to the show the host of Locked On LA Kings, Eddie Garcia. And Eddie, a great resumption from the break, a big win over Utah HC, and more importantly for the Kings, Drew Doughty, kind of the catalyst for a lot of that success. How important was it to get him back and back into the swing of things?
Yeah, I think it's very important. Defensively, I don't know that they had a big drop-off without him, which is surprisingly the case. But Vladislav Gavrikov, who's a UFA at the end of the year, is making himself quite a bit of money this season. They switched him over from being on the second pairing on the left side to the top pairing on the right side, which I don't think any of us saw coming. And he has absolutely killed it. He's been maybe the Kings MVP this year. And as a result, Drew Doughty has kind of lost his spot. He's not on the top pairing anymore. He is still running the number 1 power play unit, but he's now on the second pairing. So, statistically overall, I don't know that the defense is going to be looked at as that much better, but having Drew Doughty back obviously does make the defense stronger. his presence on the ice, his enthusiasm, his leadership, certainly were all missed to a point. But to have that kind of added, so to speak, for the stretch run now going into the playoffs, obviously is big. And, we all wondered with him coming back from the fractured ankle in the preseason, how he was going to respond. And they kind of threw him really into the deep end of the pool. They were playing him 24, 25 minutes a night. He was struggling a bit to start, which I think is understandable. But the last couple of games before the break for the Four Nations, he looked a lot better. And then I think he looked great at the Four Nations face-off. And I think that's really energized him, kind of like a hyper kind of training camp situation for him. And I think he came back, obviously, in the first game against Utah, had a goal, 2 assists, looked great, was the number one star. So having him back, obviously, is a big deal. And I think that he's, you talk about players who didn't get the rest for the Four Nations. He's an example of the opposite of a player who really benefited from the Four Nations face-off.
Yeah, getting him more work and getting him back into game shape, I think, definitely a benefit. You mentioned the power play and Doughty being the quarterback of the top unit. They're ranked 29th in the league right now. How important is getting Doughty back integrated into the power play to improving it possibly?
I think it's definitely a part of it. It's been probably the biggest disappointment for the Kings this year, certainly from a team standpoint. Defensively, they're very good. They've got the defense to be a team that's going to be tough to play against in the playoffs. They need just a little bit more offense, whether that comes in the form of a couple of players stepping up their game or whether it comes in the power play improving. So the Kings on the road are the worst power play team in the NHL. At home, though, they're middle of the pack. Now, they close out the season with 18 of 28 games on home ice, where, oh, by the way, they're 18-3-2 this year. Best winning percentage on home ice of any team. So I think the hope is with Doughty coming back and with a lot of games on home ice, hopefully that power play can feel a lot better, look a lot better as they go down the stretch run and get into the postseason. And I know we're going to touch on it in a bit, but I'm sure they're looking to add a player to help the power play out as well.
You talked about the discrepancy on home ice. Any thoughts as to why?
No. And the players and coaches have been asked about it, and they don't have an answer either. And it's one of those weird things. You see it all the time for no real, like the Dallas Stars, for example, are not very good at home for some weird reason, and they're great on the road. Why is that? I have no idea. It's very odd. But you see it all the time in the NHL. For some unexplained reason, a team will be really, really great on the road or at home, and then not so good opposite. So the Kings are one of those teams on the road, average. At home, though, unbelievable. And, like I said, with all those home games coming up the rest of the way, because they started the season on a 7-game road trip. They were having renovations at their arena. So in the end, that was tough to start, but they survived it okay. And now they're having the benefits of it here at the back end. Going into the playoffs, hopefully, playing all those home games, probably playing well. That should help them, I would think, going down in the postseason.
Big game coming up against Vegas Golden Knights. You have 3 games in hand on Vegas. How important would a regulation win be?
It would be huge. These are those 4-point games that you have within the division. They've played twice this year. They've each won on home ice. They'll meet one more time after this game on Monday. That'll be in Vegas. And yeah, the Kings have played the fewest games of any team in the NHL. So there is the opportunity to make up some ground, but that would certainly start, I think, with that home game against Vegas. The earlier game where they met him, I was there, and it was actually the same night that the Dodgers clinched the World Series. So it was, and they beat Vegas pretty handily in that game. It was a huge party. I don't know that I've been at a hockey game where there was as much of a party celebrating, atmosphere, because they, in between the second and third period, they had the game up on the Jumbotron, and we saw the final out, and the crowd went wild, and it was a very unique situation. But no, it's a big game. Obviously, Vegas has kind of been the standard here in the Pacific since they've come into the league, which is wild when you really think about it. I know you and I have been watching hockey for a while, and we remember when expansion teams couldn't dream of doing something like this.
No.
It's really an amazing story for them. Very curious to see how they adjust to life without Shea Theodore, who of course was injured in the Four Nations. I'm sure they're going to do something at the deadline, because they always do. But it's always a pretty fun matchup against the Golden Knights, and really looking forward to a big game on Monday.
The trade deadline is now just a few weeks away. You mentioned helping the power play as one possibility. What do you think the Kings specifically are looking to add, and what are they willing to give up?
Yeah, I think it's interesting for the Kings. I think it's clearly one position and one situation they're looking to upgrade, and not really anything else. And that's a right-handed shot, a forward who can play right wing and help on the power play and help offensively. The Kings are great in goal with Darcy Kemper. People may not know he's had a really, really comeback year this year. He's fourth in the league in goals against average and save percentage. The Kings are fifth in the NHL in fewest goals allowed per game. They're tied for the fewest total goals allowed. So defensively and goaltending, the Kings are good. They're fine. It's just getting a little bit more offense. If they can get 3 goals per game, they're a pretty tough team to beat. But right now they're under that threshold. So they have a ton of left-hand shots in their forward group, and on their power play, I think the only right-handed shot might be Drew Doughty now that he's back. So it's from what I've been told, when you have too many left-hand shots on your power play, it makes it a lot easier for the other team to defend kind of one side of the ice. So if they can find a right-hand shot that can help them a little bit offensively, play in their top 6 and help on the power play, they would love that. I know some of the names that have been floated out there, and who knows if they're even available, but Jonathan Marchessault, his name has certainly come up in Nashville, Alex Tuck in Buffalo, Oliver Bjorkstrand in Seattle, maybe a Ricard Raquel in Pittsburgh, maybe Brock Besser, who's a UFA at the end of the year, although I don't know if they'd want it. Vancouver's still in the mix.
Right.
And certainly that's an in-division trade, so that's unlikely. But I know, and you as an Islanders fan, I've mentioned this before, Kyle Palmieri is a name that's been floated out there again. So there's a seems to be a group of targeted players, and the Kings will have about $5 million to spend. Those guys all make around $5 million, so it seems to be a fit. As far as players that could be going the other way, the Kings have a really nice young defenseman named Jordan Spence, who his name keeps coming up. They also have a young defenseman named Brant Clark, who's kind of looking to get maybe more minutes, and there's a fit there on the right side where if they did trade Spence, then Clark could come in and take those minutes and get more playing time and help his development. So that's what the Kings are looking at. Very specific right-handed forward to help them out on their power play and hopefully give them a little bit more offensive punch. If that's available, that's what they're looking for.
Well, we're going to find out what, if anything, takes place. It's, like I said, less than 2 weeks away now, so we're looking forward to that. Eddie, why don't you tell our viewers and our listeners where they could find the podcast and where they could find you on social media?
Well, just make sure you search LA Kings so that you don't get, a Sacramento basketball team that you might not be interested in, but, any kind of a search for Locked On LA Kings, and certainly you'll find the YouTube channel, you'll find the podcast. And as far as me, I would say just follow the Locked On LA Kings sites wherever you on social media, X, Twitter, Instagram, and they even have me on TikTok now, Gil. God help me. I have to learn about this now, but I'm going to try and see what I can do. But Locked On LA Kings, anywhere on social media is where you can find it.
All right, Eddie. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth-quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting. Whether I'm backing my team for a late game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch 3, I never feel like I missed my chance. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. It is my pleasure to welcome back to the show the host of Locked On Stars, Joey Erickson. And Joey, nice start for the Stars after the Four Nations break. They go east to the New York metropolitan area, beat the Devils on Saturday, beat the Islanders on Sunday. How important was a good start after this break for the Stars?
Yeah, I thought it was massive because the Stars hit the break on sort of a high note as well, and they needed to continue to improve on what they really did towards the end of January into the Four Nations break, and that is a really strong power play. Since the turn of the new year, I think the Stars are top 5 in power play percentage, and they were pretty abysmal for the first 2 or 3 months, especially with the amount of weapons they are deploying out there. So they had to get a couple of W's with some different styles. We had some great goaltending against New Jersey, and as we just watched against the Islanders, the Stars employed the hold on for dear life strategy in the third period as they were dealing with some losses to Bischel after the hits, which I'm sure we'll get into, and then the Matt Dumba penalty. So he was out for 17 minutes, and the Stars were able to hold on and get it done. But the Bischel injury does loom pretty large for Dallas, who's already pretty thin on the blue line.
Yeah, let's talk about there were 2 controversial calls in the game. One, the hit by Casey Cizikas on Bischel, which was ruled a match penalty. And then the Islanders did have a goal taken off the board due to goalie interference. Let's start with the Bischel hit because that one obviously had a bigger impact.
Yeah, if I had to get into the Zebras' minds when electing to go with the match penalty, I think it comes from a place where Bischel was going to play the puck. Of course, he's retreating, and Cizikas, as he does, and he has done for a decade plus in New York. He's going in on the forecheck, and he's trying to send you 6 rows deep. But I think where the match penalty came into play was Bischel's trying to play the puck. Cizikas is trying to line up Bischel. And do I believe he was trying to go shoulder to head? No, but that's where the contact came from. And the NHL has made it apparent, at least in recent years, they want to take that type of hit out of the game. And I think it was fair. If they want to get rid of that type of hit, you're going to have to hand out some of those match penalties. And they elected to go with that, and credit to Dallas. They punched back via Dumba, who came in to stick up for his young partner, which I loved. A little old school hockey there. He came in and he got his money's worth too, as he had to sit for 17 minutes. But the Stars took care of business and made them pay on the scoreboard as well with a couple of power play goals. With I think they had 3 minutes to go on that major penalty. So they had all the time in the world to score, and they made him pay against an Islanders PK that struggled this season, and they get the job done. So I thought it was a fair call, and now I'm more concerned with Bischel and his health moving forward, because he's only played 18 games with the Stars, and you may think that's not a big blow, but it is. He's given Dallas some physicality, and we got to see it a little bit in the game too. Had a big hit early in the contest, and he's been an integral part of this Stars back end for the last month or so. So it is a big loss moving forward.
Now, we still don't know the extent of the injury and how long, if at all, he'll be out after this, but hopefully it's not a serious situation. You talked earlier about the power play kind of picking things up over the last few weeks. What's been different? What have they been doing better on the power play?
Yeah, I think it's been I think it's been a combination of things. Some of it I feel is just some bounces are going their way a bit more often, but a large part of it has been Thomas Harley and Miro Heiskanen, who went down a few weeks ago, was part of some of the success early in January. But Harley's earned a right to be on the top power play unit for Dallas. And he has a shoot first and score mentality, whereas Miro Heiskanen likes to defer a bit more. But with Harley on the back end sort of dictating play, he gets shots through on net, and the Stars are cleaning up some rebounds. And a big part of their success is what we saw tonight against New York, is where they got a shot on net, Sorokin would make the save, and Dallas was able to hustle and get to some of those battles in the corners and come away with those pucks, and they were able to reload and re-rack to get second chance opportunities. Early in the season, a lot of one and dones. You just get the one shot and it's cleared. They're able to win some of those battles along the wall, and get second chance opportunities. And a lot of it has just come down to execution. Robertson's finally starting to, stack some goals together, which is a great sign. What a hat trick he had tonight. I think he did it in a span of 8 minutes and 40 seconds, which was pretty remarkable. So I think it's a combination of things, and I think Harley has a lot to do with it. And there just seem to be spreading the puck around more with some pace. There's not a lot of lethargicness in their game, where I think early on in the season you're just thinking about it too much, and then when you're thinking out there, things can go haywire.
Trade deadline is now less than 2 weeks away. You mentioned some of the injuries on the blue line. What are the Stars looking to accomplish, and what are they willing to give up to get it?
Yeah, I think they would love to add a Brock Nelson type, just to throw his name out there. I don't know if that's necessarily the exact player they are going to be on. I know Nelson's been thrown out there quite a bit, it seems like, for the last few months. But if they can add a depth piece that can score goals for them, they would probably love to do that, sort of like they acquired with Mikhail Granlund just a few weeks ago, but before the break. But more importantly now, if Liam Bichsel is going to be out for a significant amount of time, you're already down Miro Heiskanen till maybe the second to last week of the regular season. And who knows even if he's going to be back for that. We may have to wait until game one of the Stanley Cup playoffs. So they do have some cap space to work with if they want to. They're going to have to add a defenseman. And even without the injuries, I want Dallas to go out and add a defenseman, whether that's, David Savard of Montreal, sort of, a PK veteran type guy, or Rasmus Ristolainen, who's, big and physical, who's playing some heavy minutes and in Philadelphia. Those are the type of pieces Dallas is looking for, because they have the makeup and roster constructed to make a deep run. But then it also begs the question, as you mentioned, what do you want to give up? Right. And I don't think they want to give up Wyatt Johnston, who I'm sure if you go out to get like that blue chip type of player, he's going to have to be included. They're not going to do that. He's going to be untouchable. I don't think they want to give up Maverick Bourque or even Logan Stankoven, who was healthy scratch tonight. I think those players are off limits too. So Jim Nill's going to have to use his gymnastics and have to rely on his back-to-back NHL GMs of the year awards and have to come up with something interesting to go get somebody to make an impact, because Dallas is being rewarded now for their drafting. They're being rewarded by having these young guys that are coming in and adding impact at the NHL level. But if you want to get some good players, you're going to have to maybe give up on some. So I'm curious to how they go about their business.
Do they have a first-round pick to give up this year, next year? What's the situation with that?
They do not have a first-round pick next year, and I don't believe they have. I think they have their first in 20. It would be the 2020, I guess, 7. I think that, but yeah, they don't have a ton of picks either, which makes it even more difficult. So they do not have a first next year, but they do have a 26 and 27 first-round pick. And even to make it more challenging, they don't have a second-round pick for this upcoming season too. So yeah, they're going to be pretty light. But 2026 they have some room to work for. Maybe they're just going to have to find a team that wants to bite here in 12 days.
And a team that's a little patient as well.
Yes. Yeah. They I don't think they're going to be in a huge hurry. And you also have to factor in Stars are missing Sagan right now. Yeah. That's another piece. So, and it seems the rumblings are that he's going to be ready for the postseason. I guess the question is, what is he going to look like coming off another surgery on his hip? But he was a point per game player before he went down here with the Stars. Got 20 points in 19 games. So maybe Dallas isn't as concerned about adding, a bottom 6 or even a top 6 winger, because you feel like with Sagan potentially coming back at the end of the regular season, that can sort of be a deadline acquisition for you.
All right, Joey, why don't you tell our viewers and our listeners where they could find the podcast and where they could find you on social media?
Absolutely. On X at Joey the Jet 19. Of course, follow Locked On Stars on Twitter as well. And of course, it's on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast. Gil, always a pleasure to be on with you. Thanks for having me on, and always good to catch up.
Thanks, Joey. Thank you for making Locked On NHL your first listen today. For your second listen, find Locked On Fantasy Hockey. Become a fantasy hockey expert and get the edge over your league mates with daily tips from our hosts, Steele and Flip. Find Locked On Fantasy Hockey on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank my guest, Jay Foster of Locked On Blue Jackets. I want to thank Joey Erickson of Locked On Stars. And, of course, Eddie Garcia of Locked On LA Kings for joining me today. I'm Gil Martin. I'm here as the host of the Monday show of Locked On NHL, and I co-host the Friday edition along with Rachel Donner. Don't forget, we're here every day, Monday through Saturday, bringing you the biggest stories from around the hockey world, so make sure you join us for that. Have a great day, everybody. Stay safe, and of course, thanks for listening to and watching the Locked On NHL podcast.